The little match girl was a destitute girl who lived in a small and dingy room in the heart of the megacity. She was slightly 10 times old and had no family to look after her. Her father had passed down, and her mama had abandoned her. She had no other cousins to turn to for help and was left to fend for herself. The only way the little match girl could earn a stingy living was by dealing matches on the cold and icy thoroughfares of the megacity. She spent long hours walking around the megacity, trying to vend as numerous matches as possible. It was a delicate job, especially in the downtime months when the thoroughfares were covered in snow, and the bitter cold wave made it hard for her to stay warm. Despite her tough circumstances, the little match girl was a determined and hard-working youthful girl. She'd wake up beforehand in the morning and start her day, trudging through the snow and daring the smelling cold wave to make a living. She'd go door to door, trying to vend her matches to anyone who would buy them. Still, despite her stylish sweats, the little match girl frequently went empty and was unfit to go to a warm place to sleep at night. She'd frequently spend the nights huddled up in a corner, with nothing to keep her warm but many matches that she had managed to keep dry. The little match girl's life was a delicate one, filled with poverty and difficulty. But despite all the challenges she faced, she refused to give up stopgap. She held on to the belief that the effects would get better, and that one day she'd find a way out of her bleak circumstances. On one particularly cold downtime night, the little match girl set up herself alone on the thoroughfares. She had been out all day, trying to vend her matches, but no one had bought any. It was a plaintively cold night, with snowflakes falling heavily from the sky, sheeting the thoroughfares in a thick subcast of snow. The little match girl was shivering with cold, and her thin clothes were no match for the smelling wind. She tried to make her way back to her dingy room, but her path was blocked by a heavy mask of snow. The thoroughfares were empty, and there was no bone around to offer her any help. As she walked, the little match girl stumbled and fell to the ground. She lay there, pulsing with cold, as the snow continued to fall heavily around her. She knew that she could not stay there for long, as the cold wave would ultimately catch her. The little match girl tried to get up, but her body was numb with cold, and she set up it hard to move. She searched her pockets for some matches to light, but they were each wet and useless. She knew that she demanded to find a way to keep warm, or she'd endure to death on the thoroughfares. As the snow continued to fall heavily around her, the little match girl felt a sense of forlornness marshland over her. She was alone and nipping, with no bone to turn to for help. But despite her dire circumstances, she refused to give up the stopgap. She knew that she had to keep going, no matter how delicate the effects might feel. The little match girl's body was numb with cold, and she knew that she demanded to find a way to keep herself warm if she was going to survive the night. She fumbled around in her pockets, searching for a match to light, and eventually set up one that was still dry. With pulsing hands, the little match girl struck the match against a rough face, and it flitted to life, casting a warm gleam around her. The heat from the match felt like a shaft of the sun on her frozen skin, and she huddled near it, hoping to absorb as important warmth as possible. As she peered into the fluttering honey, the little match girl's mind wandered to a place of warmth and comfort. She saw a vision of a roaring fire in a cozy domicile, with a comfortable armchair next to it. In her mind's eye, she was sitting in the president, wrapped in a soft mask, with a warm mug of tea in her hand. For a brief moment, the little match girl has transported down from the cold and the snow and was enveloped in a sense of peace and pleasure. She felt a swell of stopgap within her, and she knew that she had to light another match to stay warm and to keep the feeling of stopgap alive. Still, as the match burned out, the little match girl was jolted back to the reality of the cold wave, harsh night. She struck another match, hoping to keep the feeling of warmth and hope alive for just a little while longer. The little match girl struck the alternate match and watched as it burst into warm honey. The heat from the honey spread through her fritters, and she held it close to her casket, trying to absorb as important warmth as possible. As the light from the alternate match illuminated her surroundings, the little match girl was transported on a trip to a different place. In her mind's eye, she saw a magnificent Christmas tree, adorned with incandescent beautifiers and various lights. She saw children laughing and playing, enjoying the warmth and love of their families. The little match girl felt a sense of craving for a family of her own, for a warm and loving home to call her own. But indeed, as she lolled in the warmth of the alternate match, she knew that her reality was far different from the one she imagined. She was alone on the thoroughfares, with no bone to watch for her, and no home to call her own. Determined to hold on to the feeling of stopgap and warmth, the little match girl struck another match. As the honey grew, she saw a vision of a luxurious feast, with repast lemon, succulent pies, and all kinds of tasteful treats. In her mind's eye, she saw herself sitting at the table, girdled by family and musketeers, enjoying the warmth and comfort of their company. But as the match burned out, the little match girl was formerly again jolted back to the reality of her situation. She was alone and indurating on the thoroughfares, with no food to eat and no bone to turn to for help. Yet indeed, during her dire circumstances, the little match girl refused to give up the stopgap. She struck another match, determined to keep the feeling of warmth and hope alive for as long as possible. With pulsing hands, the little match girl struck the third match, hoping to hold on to the feeling of warmth and stopgap for a little longer. As the honey grew, she was transported to a different place, one that brought gashes to her eyes. In her mind's eye, the little match girl saw a vision of her departed grandmother, who had always been a source of comfort and love for her. She saw her grandmother's gentle smile, felt her soft touch, and heard her voice brooding words of love and stimulant. The little match girl had lost her grandmother not long ago, and the pain of her loss was still fresh in her heart. She missed her grandmother dearly, and the vision that the third match brought was both a comfort and a memorial of the love that she had formerly had. As the match burned out, the little match girl felt a sense of loss and craving, but also a renewed sense of stopgap. She knew that her grandmother was watching over her and that she wasn't alone in the cold and the darkness. She struck another match, hoping to see her grandmother's face formerly again, to feel her warmth and love, indeed if it was just in her mind's eye. As the honey of the fourth match grew, the little match girl saw a vision of a beautiful star shining in the sky. It was the brightest and most beautiful star she had ever seen, and it filled her heart with a sense of wonder and admiration. She felt a swell of stopgap within her, as she allowed the star as a symbol of stopgap and guidance, leading her out of the darkness and into a brighter future. With each match that she lit, the little match girl was taken on a trip to a different place, each one offering her some form of respite from her dire circumstances. But indeed, as the matches burned out, and the cold and the darkness closed in on her formerly again, the little match girl refused to give up stopgap. She struck another match, determined to keep the feeling of warmth and hope alive for as long as possible. The little match girl struck the fourth match, hoping that it would transport her to another place of warmth and comfort. As the match burned up, she saw a vision of a beautiful and warm room, with a blazing fire in the domicile and a feast laid out on a table in front of her. She saw repast meat, vegetables, and fruits, and she felt her mouth water at the sight. The aroma of the food drifted toward her, and she breathed in deeply, savoring the scent. The warmth of the fire filled the room, and she felt the dispassionateness that had settled deep into her bones start to retire. As she stood there, taking in the scene before her, she heard a voice speaking to her. It was an old man, with kind eyes and a gentle smile. He invited her to come and sit at the table, to partake in the feast, and to warm herself by the fire. The little match girl felt an evanescent swell of joy and stopgap at the kindness of the old man. She dithered for a moment, doubtful of whether she was allowed to take him up on his offer, but her hunger and the cold forced her to accept. She went to the table and sat down, feeling the warmth of the fire and the wimpiness of the bumper beneath her. She looked around, taking in the room, and saw that there were other people there, too. They were all dressed in their finest clothes, and they all looked happy and content. The little match girl felt a moment of fear and query, doubtful of whether she belonged in this beautiful and warm room. But the old man comforted her, telling her that she was welcome, that she was a part of the family, and that she merited to be there. For a moment, the little match girl felt like she had set up a new family, a place where she belonged, and a future that was filled with stopgaps and pledges. But as the match burned down, the vision faded down, and she left formerly again in the cold and the darkness. The little match girl struck another match, determined to hold on to the feeling of warmth and stopgap for as long as possible, to keep the memory of the feast and the warmth alive in her heart. The little match girl knew that she had to light another match to keep the feeling of warmth and comfort alive for as long as possible. She snappily struck the fifth match, and in its fluttering light, she saw a vision of a warm and comfortable bed, with soft robes and pillows. The bed was girdled by a warm and cozy room, with a fire burning in the domicile, casting a soft gleam around the room. The little match girl felt an unforeseen sense of peace and pleasure marshland over her. She imagined herself sinking into the warm, soft bed, and feeling the worries and cares of the world slip down. She closed her eyes and pictured herself snuggled up in the bed, feeling the soft robes around her and the warmth of the fire on her skin. At that moment, she felt as if nothing differently in the world signified, as if she could rest and be at peace ever. As the match burned down, the vision faded down, and the little match girl left formerly again in the cold and the darkness. But the memory of the warm and comfortable bed stayed with her, filling her with a renewed sense of stopgap and comfort. She struck another match, determined to keep the feeling of warmth and comfort alive for as long as possible, to hold on to the memory of the bed and the peace it offered her. The little match girl lit the sixth match, hoping to be transported to another place of warmth and comfort. As the match flitted to life, she saw a vision of a bright and sunny day, where she was girdled by fields of flowers and horselaf. The warmth of the sun enveloped her, and she felt a gentle breath blowing through her hair. She looked around and saw that she was in the midst of a beautiful meadow, girdled by a lush green lawn, and wild flowers of every color imaginable. Children were running and playing around her, their horselaf echoing through the meadow. The little match girl felt an unforeseen sense of joy and freedom. She had no way seen anything so beautiful in her life. She closed her eyes and let the sun warm her skin, and the hoarse laugh fills her heart. At that moment, she forgot all of her worries and cares, and she felt a sense of stopgap and happiness that she had no way known before. She wanted to stay in that meadow ever, to feel the warmth of the sun on her face, and the happiness of the children girding her. But as the match burned down, the vision faded down, and the little match girl left formerly again in the cold and the darkness. Still, the memory of the bright and sunny meadow stayed with her, filling her with a renewed sense of stopgap and happiness. She struck another match, determined to hold on to the feeling of warmth and comfort for as long as possible, to keep the memory of the meadow and the happiness it brought her alive in her heart. The little match girl struck the seventh match and held it near, eager to see where it would take her. The honey grew, and she saw a familiar face, her grandmother. Her heart bounded with joy to see her cherished grandmother formerly again. In the fluttering light of the match, her grandmother smiled at her and said, "Don't be hysterical, my honey. I'll always be with you and will no way leave you alone. You have the strength and courage to overcome any handicap in your path." The little match girl was assured by her grandmother's words, knowing that she wasn't alone in the world. She felt a sense of peace marshland over her, and she knew that she could face whatever challenges lay ahead of her. She allowed her grandmother's love and strength and felt a renewed sense of stopgap and courage within her. As the match burned down, the vision faded down, but the words of her grandmother stayed with her. The little match girl knew that her grandmother's love would always be with her and that she could face any challenge with her by her side. She struck another match, determined to keep the memory of her grandmother's love and strength alive within her, to face the darkness with the light of a stopgap in her heart. The little match girl had lit all of her matches and was left alone in the dark and the cold formerly again. As she sat there, she allowed all the fancies she had seen and the passions of warmth, comfort, and hope that they had brought her. She knew that indeed, though she was still cold and alone, she had a sense of peace in her heart that she had no way felt before. As the hours passed, the little match girl began to feel weaker and weaker. She knew that her time was running out, but she wasn't hysterical. In her heart, she held on to the recollections of the warmth and love that she had endured through the fancies of her matches. As she took her last breath, the little match girl saw a final vision. She saw her grandmother staying for her, with open arms and a smile on her face. She felt lifted as if she were floating, and she was girdled by warmth and light. The little match girl knew that she was leaving this world, but she wasn't sad. She was happy to be going to a place where she'd be warm and loved, and where she'd no way be alone again. The story of the little match girl serves as an important memorial that indeed in the darkest of circumstances, there's always a hint of a stopgap to hold on to. Despite the rigors and challenges that she faced in her short life, the little match girl set up moments of warmth, comfort, and joy. And in the end, she was reunited with the love of her grandmother and taken to a place of warmth and love. The story reminds us to cherish the moments of joy and hopes in our lives, no matter how transitory they may be, and to hold on to the love and strength of those who have passed before us. It's a story of stopgap, courage, and the enduring power of love to light our way through indeed the darkest of times.